Oh, welcome back to Future You. And Jeff, this is a show about the future of higher ed. So we tend to lean into things that are innovative, new, different. And that's why we decided to do an episode on direct admissions, because when Americans think about college, frankly, they probably think about three things first. One, why does it cost so much? We hear that a lot. Two, will I get a job at the other end if I get the degree? And three, how do I choose from the hundreds of institutions that I might, cross my radar screen? What's a good fit? Will I even get in if, even if I do have a sense of what the right fit is?
Yeah, Michael, of course, that admissions question you just asked has three parts, right? Choosing college, title of your book, fit and getting in. And I think it has three parts because it's so complicated, right? But I'll remind folks again that the average acceptance rate of U.S. colleges is 58%. And so we tend to focus on the getting in part, but for the most part, most students are going to get into most colleges. And here's another way of thinking about that. In my book that comes out in September, I look at how colleges at different selectivity levels perform on various fronts. It's a key part of the book, and I'll be talking a lot more about this when the book comes out. But the basis of this analysis is a group of 1,200 four-year colleges, and I broke them into 5 tiers of selectivity. And get this, 1,200 colleges all over overall. There were about 1,100 colleges in the tiers that accepted between 40% and 100% of their applicants. So again, most colleges accept most students. So the process of actually getting in isn't the problem for us to solve, Michael. The problem to solve is really further up the funnel, right? It's helping students sort through those 1,200 colleges in the first place.
And doing that, of course, is a time-consuming process that puts the onus on students, right? And Jeff, it was even interesting from my perspective to see the difference between me and my youngest brother when we applied to college. I applied in the late 90s. He was in the mid 2000s. And although we did have AOL when I applied, my application, was printed out on paper. I remember rushing down to the post office near the U.S. Capitol on Mass Ave. I think it's still there, to get it postmarked before the deadline, right? That was like a big obsession and worry. And then I got word via snail mail, which actually was delivered to the wrong address at first. It really freaked me out. And my brother, contrast, he found out via email.
Well, Michael, I'm glad that whoever got that snail mail letter, I guess it was a thick envelope at the time, right? Got that to you. Otherwise, who knows where you'd be right now, right? Well, I remember, I still remember my parents' Smith Corona word processor, right? And if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to put word processor in air quotes because it was really an electric typewriter with a screen about as big as one you might see on a traditional calculator where you'd view maybe 5 or 6 words at the most before they kind of landed on the page, right? It's certainly not the experience of typing in Word or Google Docs today, that's for sure, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that means we had a difference in our application process as well, because I was actually using Word on a Mac by that point, Jeff.
Okay, so there you go. Mine was much more tedious than yours, I guarantee. Even with that mini screen, it still required me to have whiteout to be handy as I typed out each application. The Common App was a thing in 1990 when I was applying, but it was much more smaller. It's much smaller than the Common App of today, right? Common App of today has more than 1,000 schools. I think probably in the early 90s, it might have still only had dozens. So as I've told people many times when I talk about my own college application process, I kind of petered out after 4 applications. And when you think about that, 4 applications I filed, right? Last year, about 20% of high school students, high school seniors, apply to 10 or more colleges. And I hear from parents all the time whose kids apply to even more. So sure, the Common App has made it easier, but the common piece of the Common App is sometimes a misnomer because there's something high school counselors talk about all the time, and that is portal fatigue, right? Depending on where students apply, they might have to log into several portals to kind of put their application together. And that really does create a lot of friction in this process, even if all of these schools are on the Common App.